¿Qué daños causa una droga en el usuario y en su entorno? ¿Tienen en cuenta las leyes antidroga esos daños? Si hay tal cantidad de sustancias distintas consumidas por millones de personas en todo el mundo, debería existir una clasificación científica basada en los riesgos que implica consumir una droga u otra, desde los efectos en la salud hasta las repercusiones sociales. Hoy en redes, Eduardo Punset retoma su entrevista a David Nutt, psicofarmacólogo británico que cree en una política centrada en reducir los daños, más que en reducir la prevalencia de las drogas. Y la mirada de Elsa, de la mano del lama Tulku Lobsang, nos presenta una técnica de autoaceptación que ayuda a evitar las estrategias de huida a corto plazo, como los comportamientos adictivos.
What's new, if there is anything new, on the drug? Which drugs should be allowed, which should not? What on earth are you thinking about it? Something which really tells people the dangers and the benefits.
Exactly. That is my current concern, that we balance benefits and dangers. Up till now, for most drugs, we have only looked at the dangers.
That's it.
And we have thought, if there's any danger, we should ban the drug. And that has had two consequences. That has led people to find alternative drugs to bypass the law, and some of those drugs are more harmful. So that has sometimes made the problem worse. But also, it has really impeded research. Can I give you an example?
Sí.
So, in the 1950s, when LSD was discovered, it was being widely used to help people understand how the brain worked and to help treat people with problems like terminal cancer. And then young people start to use it, there's social change, the government bans it, research stops. So for 50 years, we've done no research on this kind of drug, even though we believe it's probably one of the most important questions we can answer about how drugs work in the brain, how these drugs change consciousness.
And today, probably, with LSD, we have arrived to a point where we are convinced that we should drop it somewhere below the line of dangerous.
Well, this is true, I think, but to get a government to agree to that is very difficult.
It's difficult, eh?
Once you make a drug illegal, most governments feel that any change in the legal status is a sign of weakness. It stops becoming a scientific argument then, it becomes a moral or political argument. And politicians find it very difficult to ever admit they were wrong.
That's true. Let's help our friends to understand or to go a little bit deeper into this question. What is the traditional government accepted, the politicians accepted way of classification of drugs? If I remember well, you have something like A, B,
that's right,
and C. In A, you would have what?
In A, we have very harmful drugs like heroin and cocaine. But we also have not harmful drugs like LSD and magic mushrooms.
That's it.
So in the UK, the drug laws really don't mesh with scientific knowledge at all. But class A is supposed to be the most harmful drugs, and then B harmful and C less harmful. But for political reasons in our country, we've got them quite mixed up. There is no relationship. Our research shows there is no relationship between the classification of the drug in the UK and the harm of the drug.
Can we measure the harm which drugs bring about?
It's a complicated equation, and we have tried to do that using... We've worked out there are 16 different ways in which a drug can harm society. 9 of them are ways in which the drug harms the user, and 7 are ways in which the drug harms society. So if you're talking about any drug, you have to look at 16 separate sets of data, so it's quite complicated.
No todas las drogas son igual de dañinas. ¿Se pueden ordenar las drogas más consumidas, legales e ilegales, de mayor a menor perjuicio, con criterios objetivos? Es lo que David Nutt ha intentado junto a un importante panel de expertos procedentes de numerosas disciplinas. Definieron una serie de daños. Unos eran daños para el propio consumidor, como la mortalidad, las lesiones físicas, la dependencia o los trastornos mentales. Y otros, los daños infligidos a la sociedad en general, desde lesiones a personas del entorno hasta el impacto en la familia, el daño medioambiental o el efecto en la economía de los estados. Analizaron cada uno de los daños para cada una de las drogas y aplicaron una técnica matemática desarrollada para la toma de decisiones complejas. Consiguieron así una clasificación en una escala de daño global de 0 a 100 en un grupo de 20 drogas legales e ilegales. Si nos fijamos en las drogas más dañinas para el propio consumidor, nos encontraremos a la cabeza con la cocaína para fumar o crack, la heroína, la metanfetamina y el alcohol. Y si sumamos los daños que causa cada droga a la sociedad en general, veremos la clasificación según el daño global, donde el alcohol supera a todas, seguido de la heroína y el crack. Hoy en España la legislación sobre drogas separa las sustancias entre las que causan grave daño a la salud y las que no causan tal grave daño, sin especificar qué daños o de qué drogas se trata. Iniciativas como la de David Nutt en Reino Unido han de servir para que el ciudadano conozca los riesgos de cada sustancia y para que la ley se apoye en los conocimientos, cada día más amplios, que tenemos sobre las drogas.
You are famous, among other things, not only because of your knowledge of science on drugs, but also because you said once that equestric sport was worse than some of the drugs. What did you mean exactly when you made this comparison?
So I'm a doctor, and I specialize in treating people with drugs. I'm a psychopharmacologist, psychiatrist with expertise in drugs. And I have had a particular interest in using drugs, often illegal drugs like amphetamine, to help people with brain damage. And I've treated many people like this. And one day I saw a woman, a 37-year-old woman. She had fallen off her horse. She had damaged her brain. Her personality had changed. She had lost her job, lost her husband, lost her children. And I started thinking, how dangerous is horse riding? And I discovered that horse riding, particularly if you go into races or you go jumping, horse riding is more dangerous than a drug like ecstasy. More people come to harm, or more likely to come to harm from using it.
If they fall from a horse?
When you talk to riders, every rider knows someone who's died or had a broken back from falling off their horse.
What would be if you were free to really suggest a new classification of drugs, a new A, B, and C? What sort of appearance would have this classification?
There are natural dividing points. There are two drugs which are very popular and which are legal. One is alcohol, one is tobacco.
That's it.
Now, I have taken the view that if a drug is more harmful than alcohol to the person, and those drugs are heroin, crystal meth, and crack cocaine, those drugs probably should not be sold. I think once you get below alcohol in terms of harm, in a society that allows alcohol, then it makes no sense not to allow, in some way, drugs which are safer. Because we know that many people use alcohol because they have no alternative. And we see in America now, when cannabis is being legalized, and I think also now with your cannabis clubs in Spain, we're seeing people switch from alcohol to cannabis, which is safer. So I would have alcohol as a dividing line between illegal drugs, and then I would regulate drugs with less harm than alcohol in a way similar to the Dutch coffee shop or to the Spanish cannabis club. Regulated access, but not open market, not advertising, not commercial exploitation.
So cannabis, you mentioned this a couple of times. Is cannabis a drug we have been sort of unfair with?
Of course, very much so.
I see.
And the history is fascinating. Most governments were not interested in controlling cannabis. One thing, when America got rid of prohibition of alcohol, it had a large army of policemen that were going to be made unemployed. So the head of the Drug Enforcement Agency decided to make cannabis the next dangerous drug. So they exaggerated the harms of cannabis, particularly focusing on Mexico and the importation from Mexico, in order to justify their existence. And then it got into the United Nations charters on drugs in 1960, where most countries didn't want it, but there was pressure from the US and also from Egypt to get it into the conventions. And once it's in a convention, once something becomes illegal, then people that deal with the law, like the police and like the customs officers, they inevitably target it. And cannabis is very easy to target because a lot of people use it. You can smell it. It's quite bulky. So it became an easy target. And then so we've had a great prosecution of cannabis users in the UK, young people getting prosecuted just because they possess small amounts of cannabis.
It's incredible because there are some drugs, like cannabis you are mentioning now, which apparently they have some positive, some beneficial effects besides their deteriorating effects. On the same group, you probably would have what you call the LSD.
Yes.
And the ecstasy.
Yes.
Drugs which we just never think about the positive effects. Absolutely. Or the potential effects.
And that's, I think, the biggest problem. Getting a pure form of an illegal drug is extraordinarily expensive. So research has stopped. And that's one of my challenges in the rest of my career, is to get research in these drugs back on track. Because ecstasy is almost certainly a very useful drug for people with stress disorder, chronic stress disorder. Psilocybin, another psychedelic, works for headaches. We're also trying to do a study in resistant depression. And LSD, as I've said already, is very helpful in people who are dying, helping them come to terms with the enormity of death. And I think it would be much better if people could face death with some kind of equanimity, with some understanding. Nowadays, what we do, we just poison them with opiates to deaden their minds so that they die without really understanding what's happened.
En las próximas décadas veremos la irrupción de nuevos fármacos que ayudarán a minimizar el efecto de determinadas drogas o por lo menos a combatir la adicción. Ya sabemos que sustancias psicodélicas extraídas de hongos y plantas podrán ser útiles para vencer la adicción a opiáceos, al alcohol o a la nicotina. Pero, por otro lado, se desarrollarán sustancias que, consumidas junto con las bebidas alcohólicas, permitirán limitar los efectos del alcohol, evitar el tambaleo y dejar únicamente los efectos relajantes y placenteros. Y allá por el 2030, las bebidas no llevarán alcohol, sino un fármaco que activará los sistemas de relajación natural del organismo, como lo hace el alcohol, pero de forma mucho más segura. Is there a reason why politicians or media have this resistance to changing classification?
Yeah, I think there are reasons. I think partly it's simple politics, because most politicians know the drug laws don't work. In fact, we very often see when the drug minister, when he eventually leaves office, he says, "Oh, I got it wrong." That's happened several times in the UK. But there is not enough political courage to grasp the nettle, as we say in the UK, and make the change. I think the change now will come from people. It will people saying, "We actually don't believe you anymore. You know, we don't believe, we don't want to spend our money locking up people for smoking cannabis." In Britain today, we spend about 800 million euros a year criminalizing young people using cannabis.
Cannabis.
800 million euros.
And
what a complete waste of money.
And what about heroin?
Heroin, the cost of heroin, maybe in terms of policing, are probably less than that. There are probably about 200-300 million euros.
Yeah.
When you see countries like Portugal or the Netherlands, which have a more rational approach, a health-based approach, you see that they save a lot of money because they take a lot of expenses and costs out of the criminal justice system. And that's what I think eventually will change things. People will say, why waste taxpayers' money doing something which actually makes, in many cases, the situation worse?
That's incredible, no? Is there anything we can do about it? I mean, it's funny because in the Anglo-Saxon world, you have launched
because almost no politicians have a science background. In our parliament, 650 politicians, one is a scientist.
Incredible, eh?
And the second reason is that people go into politics because it's almost an entertainment. I don't think they actually care about evidence. I think they care about personal achievement, about status. I think they almost find evidence well, they do find it threatening. You know, scientists deal with facts, but politicians deal with the bigger picture. So we have to re-educate our politicians, and we have to challenge them. We have a very clever thing in our parliament now. We have a group of people that monitor every scientific statement, supposed fact that our politicians make. And this is a really novel way of keeping the politicians at least telling the truth, if not necessarily making the right decisions.
You spent so many years of your life on this fight against the bad effects of drugs. What would be your biggest wish if you had to choose one thing to concentrate politicians?
We must change the drug laws and the international drug conventions. Now, there is going to be a meeting of the United Nations in 2014 or 2015 to review the whole UN conventions on drugs. That is an opportunity to say it's wrong, it's been wrong for 60 years, we've got to get it right. And that's what I'm pushing towards, a rational approach to drugs.
Como señala David, nuestro conocimiento sobre las drogas nunca será completo. Y sin embargo, los políticos han de aprobar leyes y la gente ha de tomar decisiones sobre las drogas que consume y cómo las consume. Por lo tanto, no se trata de buscar el modelo perfecto para clasificar las drogas basado en la más pura evidencia, sino de ir adaptando el modelo al ritmo de los descubrimientos de la ciencia. No dejemos que lo mejor sea enemigo de lo bueno.
¿Puede la química hacernos felices? ¿Es posible modificar los niveles químicos del cerebro para sentir siempre placer o felicidad? El problema es que cualquier cosa que usemos para manipular el cerebro puede acabar siendo muy adictivo. Aunque de entrada cause mucho placer, con el tiempo puede alterar los circuitos y los receptores de los neurotransmisores que nos hacen sentir bien, por lo que una persona necesita cada vez más estimulación para conseguir el mismo nivel de placer. Y esa es la base de la adicción. Pero la adicción no surge solo en el caso del consumo de drogas. El neurólogo Joseph Ledoux llama la búsqueda incesante del placer y de la felicidad humanas la tiranía de la felicidad. Y asegura que para disfrutar de una buena vida necesitas el contraste entre emociones positivas y negativas. Y para una vida rica en emociones positivas es necesario el fomento consciente de esas emociones. Hoy vamos a explorar maneras de estimular nuestras emociones sin usar más sustancias que las que genera nuestro propio cerebro. Y lo vamos a hacer de la mano de alguien muy especial, el lama Tulku Lobsang. ¿Nos acompañas? Tulku Lobsang, real pleasure to have you with us here. Most people don't want drugs to cause destruction. Most people want drugs to do this chemical effect in their brain which makes them feel good.
Correct.
Are you saying there are other ways of getting this effect?
Yes. The Tantrayana Buddhism, we use we use pleasure or happiness and the beauty, and we use the vehicle of the come out of the sufferings. But whatever make you happy is very dangerous because you possible come attachment. Normal people is look like me, is in the Buddha say no, don't drink. Is when you drink, example, you drink alcohol, you destroy your body.
So, for example, young people in the West, and in particular in Spain, we have very high levels of drinking. In children, adolescents from the age of 13 onwards, they usually start drinking. Is that normal in other countries? You travel all around the world. Have you seen this in other cultures?
I think yes, I see some cultures have more drink and this and that. But example, in Tibet, not people drink so much. You know, young people never drink.
How do they have fun?
Oh, they're mostly making go together and play and to make joke each other and to talk some stories. But you also don't offend anyway. Is to easily buy all these things, you know. Interesting thing is a drug no, drug is not. In what I know, my area, Tibetan quite big. In where I'm staying, the monastery, each monastery we have a small garden. Each monastery, monks inside, we have small gardens. In the garden we put different flowers. They always have one red flower. We call drug flower. We go sleep flowers. Yeah. But when we smell, it's very bad smell. Now I understand that this is a drug.
This is a drug. What does it do to you?
No, we never using just very beautiful flowers. Nobody using, you know. It's because they don't have this kind of tradition.
And maybe because they know how to generate those feelings without the drugs.
Yeah, I think especially in the Tibetan, in our area, we have very good social. Just go in the nature to make enjoy, but mostly I know their hobbies is very popular in the ghetto singings, yes.
Las emociones positivas pueden estimularse de muchas maneras, pero el paso previo más importante es aceptarnos a nosotros mismos. Por ello, aseguraba Carl Roger, uno de los padres de la psicología moderna, que solo cuando las personas se aceptan a sí mismas como son capaces de cambiar. Hoy, el lama Tulku Lobsang va a sugerirnos un ejercicio para explorar hasta qué punto nos aceptamos y nos sentimos bien con nosotros mismos. Ojo, porque puede resultar un poco incómodo, aunque sea muy eficaz ponerlo en práctica.
I think it's one of the best is their practice example, the meditation. You know, it's because meditation is the way to go deep nature of their self, and to one where they reach in the deep nature of their self, and they discover more than what we have here, and they have many beautiful things. Meditation is like simple. Stand in front of a mirror. Stand in front of a mirror, and to look yourself 3 minutes, and you see many interesting things.
Some people don't like looking at themselves.
Yes.
Why?
Because they never used to happiness themselves. They're always used to happiness outside of their self. That is a problem. Therefore, and then 2 minutes, and you start to talk so many nice things yourself. how you're good, you did so many good things, or you want to do something good thing, you need to give so many positive support to yourself. Because mostly always did good things.
Yes.
And that's make you start to like yourself, you start to trust yourself, you start to feel good. And then you start to give power to yourself. Because we are sometimes addicted outside of ourselves, and then we lose the power. We are so much dependent outside. And the 5 minutes, you just look and to love yourself. Love yourself and love yourself. When you success to love yourself, and you come free of all others.
Alberto, tú eres una persona muy atenta, que sabes escuchar.
Las tortillas patatas te salen de coña.
Me encanta tu pelo tal cual, así que no te lo cortes nunca.
Ay, Pilarita, ¿quién te ha visto y quién te ve? Qué cantidad eres.
Aceptarse uno mismo es clave para gestionar las emociones que activan las partes del cerebro más reactivas, aquellas que nos hacen vulnerables a la búsqueda de estrategias de huida o soluciones a corto plazo, como las drogas.
Eres positivo.
Eres sincero y me gusta cómo haces las cosas. Qué joven te veo. Eres fantástico.
Tú eres un tío inteligente. Eres muy bueno. Mira.
Lo que sabemos a ciencia cierta es que la felicidad no es un estado estable. Aparece y desaparece a lo largo de nuestras vidas. Tal vez resulte más natural aceptar que el cuerpo y la mente no están programados para ser constantemente felices, para el placer estático, sino para buscar un equilibrio entre la luz y la oscuridad, lo positivo y lo negativo, una búsqueda permanente de formas nuevas y creativas de vivir. No es magia, es inteligencia emocional.